In an apocalypse where hungry monsters make survival a real-life game of hide and seek, Maru and Kiruko are the happiest people on Earth. Well, if you count being almost the last people on Earth, yeah. And let's not forget the ravenous creatures that are 100% human-friendly. Kiruko, with her weird determination, takes on the noble task of being Maru's bodyguard. Why? Well, she's got her own milk-fetching mission, searching for her missing relatives who apparently took a detour longer than my dad going to get the milk. Meanwhile, Maru's dreamy-eyed quest for a place called heaven has him wandering around like a lost kitten. At this rate, he might just end up meeting another heaven sooner than he thinks. Behind the closed walls, there are students in uniform who are casually playing around, as someone named Cuckoo brings a tomato to Taro, who is facing an illness. On the second floor, Mimahime is watching the other students play when Tokyo approaches her. He asks what Mimahime is doing here since the beginning of class is about to start. She says to Tokyo that there will be a test today, however Tokyo is confused as their robot sensei has not informed them about any test today. The class starts and the teacher announces that there is going to be a surprise test. The test appears on their workbook tablets and only comprises 10 short questions. Meanwhile, Cuckoo is watching Kona draw a fish with arms, which she finds weird. But good weird. Tokyo's test suddenly gets refreshed and an 11th question comes in front of him. That is, if he wants to see what is outside of the wall. Meanwhile, on the outside, the whole world has been destroyed due to some great tragedy, and most of the people have lost their lives. Two teenagers, Kiruko and Maru, are exploring the neighborhood to look for food or other necessary stuff. They break into this house where they find a couple that died of starvation. Knowing this, they break into another huge empty house where again, there is no food, so Kiruko, who is addressed as sis by Maru, opens the canned food. She adds the weed that is growing all over town, hoping it would make the food taste better. However, she ends up ruining the precious canned food as well. Later that night, Kiruko, who is actually Maru's bodyguard, stares at the picture of a middle-aged guy and an uncle, who might be her family or something. When Maru asks, she reveals that the young guy is her friend while the old guy is just someone she wishes to meet. She hopes to run into them while guarding Maru to his destination. Just then, they show a scary huge bird flying in the middle of the dark sky. The next day, they run into a bunch of thugs who get excited to finally see a woman after so long. These perverts try to attack them, but Kiruko's gun scares them away. However, one of the thugs notices that the gun looks strange and suspects that it might just be a dummy. They charge in to capture them, but Maru easily fights them off. Kiruko then fires this electric gun and defeats the thugs. They take the thugs captive and head to their place where Kiruko uses her gun to blackmail them into charging the battery of something. In exchange for some food, she makes them share the location of Tomato Tengoku or Tomato Heaven that they were talking about earlier. Once the battery is charged, she puts it back into her gun, which devastates the thugs as they were being pointed with an empty gun all this time. This gun can only shoot 4 shots in a single charge and has a 50-50 chance of actually firing. However, this is the only weapon they have on their way to finding heaven. Back at the closed facility, Tokyo shares the strange question appearing in his test with Mimahime, who responds that she has always had a feeling that there is an outside. Recently, she has been able to imagine it more clearly. Whenever she thinks of going outside, she sees 2 people from the outside coming to help her. What's strange is that one of their faces is exactly the same as Tokyo's. Later that night, the director in a wheelchair finds Tokyo wandering outside and confirms his doubt that there really is an outside to these walls. Kiruko is tired of all the walking, so they decide to spend the night at a guest house they found. When she asks the nice owner about the guys from the pictures, she reveals that she has not seen them before. They head to the baths where Kiruko tries to kiss herself through the mirror after taking off her clothes, but the owner enters at this awkward moment. After the bath, she plugs in the battery of her gun. The owner shares that very few people come here because of a monster. Upon hearing the explanation, Kiruko realizes that it is a man-eater that she is talking about, and shares that they can kill it. The owner then serves them a tasty meal and hesitantly informs them that having children with a close relative is very dangerous. Maru and Kiruko turn all red. She reveals that Maru is not actually her brother, nor are they dating. He is just someone she has to guard. Maru feels bad about being just an object of protection. Later that night, they both feel tired and fall asleep instantly. That huge bird with a creepy face from earlier lands right outside the owner's window. Meanwhile, the director of the facility tells Tokyo that there is an outside to these walls, but that is a hell where dangerous monsters lurk. After talking with Taro about the outside, Tokyo sees 2 girls kissing and then Cuckoo shows the fish drawing that Kona gave to her. Tokyo gets mad and confronts Kona about why he gave that painting to Cuckoo after he promised him. Kona apologizes and promises to make the next one for him. Meanwhile, the bowl cut guy receives a message from Mimahime for the first time. He opens the message, and it turns out to be Mimaheim's showering picture. Kiruko wakes up from the noise of that creepy Mainator. She wakes up Maru and heads out to kill it. While looking for it in the dark, Maru trips and falls on the ground, and suddenly, that monster appears from Kiruko's behind. They realize that it has whips attached to its wings that move fast enough to seem invisible. Kiruko manages to hit one of its wings and uses Maru as a distraction to shoot the other wing. Meanwhile, the owner finds them just before Kiruko is about to shoot and stops her, saying that they should not kill it. Her son was eaten by this monster, and she now thinks that her son's consciousness has overtaken the monster. Her claim is backed by the fact that she is standing so close to it, yet she is not being attacked. Kiruko agrees to back off. However, the whips suddenly cut the owner into 3 pieces and the Mainator consumes her. Realizing that their mistake cost the owner her life, Maru charges at the monster by beautifully dodging all its whips, which only move in a single direction. Once he is in contact with it, he can extend his hand inside the body of these Mainators and crush their hearts. Just like that, they killed this monster. The next day, they continue their journey. The great disaster that ruined this world happened 15 years ago, so Kiruko at that time was either at the age of 3 or 5. To get to the tomato heaven, they have to cross through the water. Using a square-shaped wooden piece as a boat, they hop on quickly and pass through, hoping that there are no crocodiles. Back at the facility, Taka shows everyone his recent invention that can let a man climb high altitudes. During experimenting, the device loses power after reaching the top and Taka falls onto the ground. Surprisingly, he only gets minor scratches and is still alright. Upon the sight of Taka falling, Mimaheim involuntarily hugs the person next to her, which is Shiro, and now everyone is questioning why Shiro is the one with a nosebleed. Meanwhile, Kiruko and Maru arrive at the tomato Tengoku, and if this turns out to be the heaven he is looking for, their time together will end. Maru shows a needle and a drug that he needs to inject into the person that has exactly the same face as him. That person might be in heaven. The last person to see Mikura, who gave Maru this drug and instruction, was Kiruko. Mikura got some strange marks appearing all over his body, and while dying from this infection, he told Kiruko to take Maru to heaven and gave her the beam gun. This tomato heaven is a small civilization established by the remaining people. They are taken to the village chief, whose wife shares that they are now growing all kinds of vegetables and crops, not just tomatoes. Later that night, while Maru and Kiruko are having dinner, a villager approaches them with excitement and asks if Kiruko is actually Kiruko Takeya, the famous electro kart racer. Maru denies that she is not a racer, but the guy shows him a picture and turns out she has just the same face. Although the kart racer has black hair while Kiruko here has reddish hair. Maru still denies that this is not the same person. Just then, Maru notices the same symbol that is on their beam gun on a box. They continue their journey on a ship where Maru confesses his feelings to Kiruko, saying that he likes her a lot and wants to get settled with her. If you think the worst she could say is no, you have got another thing coming, as Kiruko reveals to him that she actually is a boy but in a girl's body.
I'm done. Cut the show. I'm done.
5 years ago in Tokyo, Kiruko Takeya's race was going on while a kid, Haruki, was chasing some bad guys. Those guys are found selling fake tickets to the race. Due to the difference in strength, they pin Haruki down, but he is saved by Robin, who beats the bad guys and guides Haruki on the best way to fight. As a token of appreciation for his bravery, Robin gives him a jacket. Haruki flaunts his new jacket in front of his friends, and just then, Haruki Takeya's older sister, Kiruko, arrives with the old guy from the picture, who is addressed as Doc. She got disqualified as she fell off her cart. One of the kids shows his camera to Kiruko, and that's when she took a picture with Doc that she is carrying till now. Later that night, Haruki and Kiruko are sleeping in their room at the orphanage when they hear sounds of footsteps. Haruki checks from the window, and Robin shares that a Mainator has appeared and they are all on their way to kill it. Haruki gets dressed and picks up the new weapon he created and heads out to help everyone. His weapon actually managed to kill the Mainator. The next day, when another guy praises Haruki for taking down a Mainator, he reveals that he still got an earful from Robin. Robin used to have a sister of Haruki's age who died in the Great Disaster, so he has been overprotective of him since then. He then runs off to see his sister's race from a tall tower. Using his binoculars, he notices a barely visible Mainator at the end of track. Worried that his sister might run into it, he chases the monster to steer it off track. The weapon that managed to kill the similar Mainator has barely any damage to this one, so he decides to use a dagger to stab it into its ugly face. Meanwhile, Kiruko is leading the race and will soon reach the end of track. As Haruki stabs it, his arm starts to get sucked into this creepy monster, and when Haruki tries to break free using his other hand, that gets sucked in too. Haruki arrives and notifies the other contestants that there is a Mainator here, so they should head back and inform the headquarters. Before she is about to turn around as well, she notices a half-consumed body in its mouth. Upon closer look, Kiruko realizes that it's her brother. She runs the cart into that monster, and that's where she gets all those scars that we saw on her body. She manages to pull out her brother, but only the upper half of Haruki is remaining, while the rest of his body has already been consumed. Kiruko starts crying and yelling for help while Haruki is on his last breath. With slightly open eyes, he sees his sister's crying face, and then at the same time he closes his eyes, he hears a gunshot. While dying, he remembers all the good memories with his sister. Meanwhile, the operation is going on, and after a long scary dream, Haruki finally wakes up. He cannot believe that he survived, but before anything else, he looks around for his sister. Just as he is about to ask the doctors, he sees his sister standing just by his side. Upon closer look, he realizes that it's just a mirror, and it turns out that Haruki is in his sister's body. After calming down, he gets to know that the person who performed the operation was Doc, and he immediately leaves town afterwards. Haruki has no idea how he ended up in his sister's body, as the last time he saw his sister, she was fine and definitely alive. After 4 months, Haruki is finally healed, so he starts to look for Robin or Doc. The orphanage he used to live at was closed. Since no one knows whether the Doc or Robin are alive or not, he takes out their pictures and starts to move town to town to look for them. For food and money, he starts to accept random requests, and then after 4 years, he gets this job with Maru that brings him here. Therefore, he asks Maru to look at him as a man now. However, Maru still blushes whenever he sees Kiruko's face up close and even gets jealous of her speaking so frankly of Robin. We will still address her as a female. Suddenly, they hear a scream, and it turns out that their ship is being attacked by another creepy Mainator. Meanwhile, Kona is drawing a picture of a baby and fetus, and Kuku asks if she could have this picture, but Kona tells her that this one is for Tokyo. Tokyo asks Kuku why she is interested in Kona's drawings when she finds it weird. She responds that his creativity is unique, like the picture of the baby he is drawing is fictional. She has seen a real baby, and real babies do not have a face. Kiruko heads out and fires her beam gun right into the fish-like Mainator's face. However, this time, the gun has no effect because of the protective water layer around it that lets it breathe outside of water as well. Meanwhile, Kuku is taking Tokyo to show the faceless babies. In the surveillance room, the teachers are wondering why students are kissing each other, as they never teach them anything about physical needs. Suddenly, they notice Takao's health getting worse, so they inform the doctors immediately. Kuku climbs up the wall towards the air hole and enters. Tokyo uses Taka's gadget to climb up. What's surprising is that the surveillance camera is not showing Tokyo climbing up the wall. On the ship, Smart Boy and his beautiful sister's body analyzes the situation. She concludes that the best way to kill this creepy monster with suction hands and lubricant all around is to drive it away from water. As it only moves in a straight line, they will bring it inside the ship. She goes outside and baits herself, so the Mainator follows her. She then leads it inside the basement, whose door is hardly ever opened. The basement is filled with boxes, so Maru and Kiruko could barely run over them. Maru gets to the door on the other side of the room, but it is locked. Kiruko tells him that they don't need to open the door, as the boxes are filled with marijuana that slowly sucks the water out of the Mainator, and it gets weak and falls. Maru then uses his Maru Touch to crush its heart. Yup, Kiruko named it Maru Touch after successfully naming her gun as Kuru Beam. Awful naming, but since she is cute, we shall accept it. Kuku and Tokyo jump into a locked room with a number of faceless babies. Only these are not human babies, but the freaking Mainator babies. One of the babies tries to get close to Tokyo, and suddenly, the intruder alarm goes off. All the teachers and director gather to see who dared to intrude. Meanwhile, Kuku is already in the vent, but Tokyo cannot jump that high. The surveillance cameras are still showing an empty room of Mainator babies, even though Tokyo is standing right there in the middle of the room. Kuku gives a hand to Tokyo, and by stepping on the wall, he manages to escape. However, his footprint is left on the wall. What's more messed up is that the Mainator that was trying to extend its hand towards Tokyo memorizes his name and stutters to Kaio, the ship captain, and his extremely loud brother thanks Maru and Kiruko for killing the monster and give a lead about that symbol on the gun. They explore the town and find a yakin, which Maru names as you can eat. The lead about the symbol turns out to be false, so they spend the night in a home center. Back at the facility, Shiro is devastated for forgetting the sight of Mimiheim's naked body, so he leads her to an empty room after class. Surprisingly, Mimiheim denies ever sending him a message. Shiro then confesses her horny feelings towards Mimiheim and explains in detail what he wants to do to her body. Tokyo overhears their conversation and then leaves. While talking to Terao, who has the same marks all over his body like Mikura, asks Tokyo to get closer to him and tries to kiss him. He then freaks out and runs away. Kona notices and tries to calm him by saying that falling in love and wanting to touch or be touched by someone is normal. Tokyo confesses that in that case, he wants it to be with Kona. Kona reciprocates the feelings, saying he wants it to be with him too. Later that night, Tokyo is called into Terao's room whose condition is getting worse. Terao realizes that he may die soon, so he apologizes to Tokyo for trying to kiss him before and tells him to run away as this facility is dangerous. In the arcade, Maru is playing some games when he is approached by some thugs. Fight breaks out between them, and as it is Maru, he beats the crap out of them. One of the guys tries to escape but unluckily runs into Kiruko, who is back from her unsuccessful attempt of selling a CD. Without knowing what is going on, she starts beating that guy up too. Before more arrives, they head off. Maru shares that he was born the same year as the Great Disaster. The place where he lived with other kids got closed down. The adult who led their group was then killed over some sort of turf war, so the kids went with the killer. He became their gang member and started working under them. That's where Mikura turned up and took him in and taught him how to kill Haruko Ak, a mainator. Kiruko asks if he saw her as a woman, but Maru shares that the coldness in her eyes never let him feel anything towards her. The room next door is filled with books, which Kiruko has already gathered useful ones. She then heads out for shopping alone, as Maru's face might be recognized by those thugs. Kiruko notices that those guys from yesterday are actually looking for Maru. One of them suggests that they just leave him be and focus on the Ministry of Reconstruction that rumors are flying about. This rumor was also told to Kiruko by Robin before that this is a group abducting people with skills to get civilization back to how it was. Kiruko heads back and notices that Maru is not in the room while all the stuff is still here. She panics and starts screaming his name. Turns out, Maru is in the next room apparently hiding. Kiruko steps forward to see that Maru was not hiding but giving himself a treat with that. She starts crying with joy, as she never thought she would freak out this way over Maru's disappearance. Maru consoles her with a hug, and during the hug, Kiruko feels something hard. Back in the facility, the doctor finds footprints of Tokyo on the wall and starts taking pictures of children's boots discreetly to match. Meanwhile, the children are singing and dancing as a way to cheer Terao to fight against their illness. Later that night, Terao dies and the funeral is conducted the next morning. Terao is the second child who died. The first one was Kona's best friend Asura, who committed suicide because her body could not bear such a sharp mind. The director screams at the doctor to find the cure of this illness, as the day of fate cannot be changed. Meanwhile, Kiruko shows Maru the map she bought in exchange for books. There is a place with 100% safe water, and they suspect it to be heaven. Just then, a guy knocks at their door. This guy was also in the ship and wants them to be his bodyguard while he heads towards the Immortal Order. This place is said to have a doctor that can keep a person alive forever if transplanted with a mainator's body part. These mainators only started to appear after the Great Disaster. However, the body part he collected has already broken into pieces, so it cannot be used now. They buy the information about Immortal Order's location and head towards it. According to the map, this place is said to have strange people. Meanwhile, the doctors show the director a creepy black strange thing that came out of Terao's body. They ask a girl about this place with 100% water, and after explaining to them the way to that underground entrance, she tries to make them book a room in her hotel. Kiruko could not see her sadness, so she agreed to stay the night there and puts the bags in their rooms. Maru realizes that she only rented the room to give her money. They arrive at the location and notice that the water really is very clean. They see an injured man in the middle of that place. When they approach him, he shares that there is a monster here and they should save his companion. Afterwards, he passes out. The other companion is already lying dead in the water. They see the bear-like monster and immediately run out of the underground room. Using 2 of the bullets, Kiruko breaks a pillar that falls over the monster chasing them, making him unconscious. He was not crushed as it did not fall over him. Maru is impressed by this man and woman's body's quick thinking and improvisation. She then asks Maru to use Maru Touch on it. Maru, who is not convinced with this name, yells the new name he gave to this power, Fatal Dive, and tries to go into the monster. However, he fails as the monster wakes up with a howl. Turns out, it's not a mainator but a wild animal. They freak out and start running like crazy until they manage to climb up a pillar. They stay there until sunset and the bear has apparently left. Kiruko still has 1 shot left, so she takes out the battery to warm it up before climbing down. Unfortunately, she drops the battery down onto the ground. Since the bear is not here, she asks Maru to climb down and bring the battery back. Maru refuses to risk his life for her mistake. Kiruko makes an offer that if he brings back the battery, she will let him touch her chest. Before she could complete her sentence, Maru had already jumped off.
取ってきたらおっぱい触らせてよ。いった！あのバカ！
Men will be men. The bear appears as soon as Maru steps down, however, he is too fast to be caught by the bear. They devise a plan that Maru will step down first and then Kiruko, who is afraid of heights, will jump off and Maru will catch her. Afterwards, Maru should run away while she fires the last shot. Their plan worked and they managed to kill the bear. Maru risked her life as she was sure that the battery was already fully charged with Maru's horny energy. Totori, the girl from the hotel, is sad as the injured guy is her boss. Later that night, after enjoying the bear meat, Kiruko realizes that they were tricked in the tent city and lured into hunting grounds. The guys that Maru beat up, they might have planned it. Afterwards, Maru asks her to keep her end of the bargain. He gets on top of her and starts unbuttoning her shirt. Because of the noise, Totori barges into the room and takes Maru away so they don't ruin her futon. In Maru's room, Totori tells him to release his urges on her instead, in exchange for money or that solar-powered light that she found in their stuff. She removes her clothes and puts his hand on her chest. Surprisingly, Maru's hand extends towards her heart, which is strange as this skill only worked on mainators. He calls Kiruko to his room while pinning Totori down in a doggy style, and yells that he got in. From the position he is in and his poor choice of words, he cannot defend himself in any way. Meanwhile, at the facility, Tokyo is told to rest since he is sick. He sees the ghost of Asura in front of him who asks what Tokyo is good at. She then disappears and something weird starts covering Tokyo's body. That's when he wakes up from this weird dream. At the hotel, Maru and Kiruko bow down to apologize to Totori while she enjoys their total submission to Her Majesty. She reveals that this hotel is all she has and she intends to become the king of hotels by having more clean rooms and by sleeping with the guests. Later, Maru shares that this is the first time Maru touch worked on a human. Kiruko mocks him by saying that isn't it fatal dive. The next day, Maru and Kiruko leave after Totori tells them that the man they rescued yesterday, her boss, couldn't make it. They offer her to join them but she declines, so Maru tells her to become the king of hotels for real. They head off to their next destination. Meanwhile, Tokyo heads off to Kona's room in the middle of the night. The surveillance cameras are still showing Tokyo in his room asleep while he is chatting with Kona in his room. The doctor runs a similarity check on the footprint in Tokyo's shoes and finds out that Tokyo was the intruder. In Kona's room, they both take off their clothes and it turns out Tokyo is actually a girl.
What the hell is even that?
I'm being so honest right now, I have no idea what is happening in this anime and I'm the one making the video. Anyways, reaching Eden City, the two of them prepare a sign to advertise that they kill man-eaters. For Maru, he cannot even spell the word we write while Kiruko, who pretty confidently said she would write it, ended up writing man-eats instead of man-eaters because she was talking and writing at the same time. Their genius is unmatchable. While waiting for someone to approach them, Kiruko fishes out some live food for them to cook and eat. At night, while she is cooking, Maru seems to be eerily quiet, making her ask what deep thoughts he is in. All her interests in Kiruko drop dead on the floor right when Maru opens his mouth. His deep thoughts were about the odd number and sizes of the fish, making him wonder how they would divide it. Don't worry Maru, you are not dumb, people just don't understand the foodie concerns. Some men guarding a building notice Maru and Kiruko and report their leader, Dr. Uzami. Upon hearing about them and what their sign says, Uzami tells the men to bring them to him. Kiruko smirks upon seeing some people approach them, excited that they are going to get some job. They enter some hideaway cafe where a lot of people are chilling and some signs about boycotting human experiments are lying about. They are seated in front of three people whom they tell that they want to meet the Immortal Order. The woman in between tells them to not consider it an ordinary hospital if they are here for treatment. But Kiruko shows them the picture of the doctor she is looking for. The three of them respond that it is not Dr. Uzami. Their lack of knowledge about other doctors in Immortal Order makes Kiruko and Maru realize these people are not from the organization. Turns out, these anti-immortal orders found the two before Dr. Uzami's men. The people introduce themselves as an opposing organization named Liviaman. The leader, Mizuhashi, tells them about the Immortal Order performing experimentations on humans and amputating their body parts in the name of operations to either perform tests upon them or implant them into robots. Mizuhashi's leg was amputated by them and replaced with a metal one. From their conversation, it seems like these people are against prosthetics, but they present the viewpoint of the world turning lawless and the Order performing tests to infuse human brains and stuff into robots. Mizuhashi tells them she also witnessed a human body completely chopped and supported by a bunch of machines and wires begging to let him die when she was in that hospital. Kiruko shares the rumor about the Immortal Order transplanting parts of man-eaters onto human bodies, which links to the concern these people called them for. They want the two to kill the man-eater that the Immortal Order is keeping in their basement. During the night, Maru notices Kiruko not being as cool-headed as her usual self and tries to pry but finds no response. Meanwhile, not being cool-headed is a very normal thing for Maru since he keeps witnessing Kiruko either naked or sleeping too close to him. Poor Loverboy. The next day, the Livium people help the two of them sneak into the basement. Contrary to assumption, the basement is bright with lights and very quiet and normal. Maru tells her things seem to be looking more like they are the hunt rather than hunters. He offers suspicion that they are being trapped to be used for experiments, which Kiruko starts thinking too, but the thought only lasts till they see a dormant man-eater. The two of them keep finding those and destroying them until they reach the boss. It is looking dead because of lack of food since being trapped. Kiruko suddenly sees some light in his body followed by active man-eaters around. She starts shooting them, but they are unaffected and travel through walls and ground to latch onto them. Upon seeing Maru already trapped and down, she starts resisting only to get her arm eaten up. This is followed by screams for Robin to save her as more man-eaters attack her while she loses her breath. Suddenly, we all get to know why she can't breathe. Because a certain guy is currently kissing a passed-out girl. Well, at least it brought her out of her hallucination. Maru tells her to rest while he destroys the rest of the man-eaters, but ends up clingily complaining about her calling out to Robin in need. Kiruko accepts she needs to be more focused as the giant man-eater just hypnotized her. Seeing her in thought, Maru tries to lean in for a kiss again only to get slapped. What even did he expect anyway? Their banter stops when a suited man with a gun in his hand walks up to the dead man-eater, smiling that it is dead. The creepy man turns towards them and bows, wanting their help in killing someone. Turns out he is the well-known Dr. Uzami, who currently seems humble and humane as compared to his reputation. The Livium protesters are chanting and shouting in front of the building with Mizuhashi on one of the person's shoulders. A guy throws a rock at the window behind which the Order people are standing, making them throw it back. The retaliation causes the commotion, resulting in Mizuhashi falling head first. All of the protesters return mocking violence as if they are not the pathetic ones. The bald man around Mizuhashi receives the news of the man-eater dying and proceeds to execute his plan, ignoring Mizuhashi. He declares to the whole cult that Mizuhashi is dead and they should march to the building for revenge. Indeed, those people need to enter a hospital, a mental one. Dr. Uzami takes the two along, passing by a bunch of people with prosthetics living on one of the floors and asking Uzami for guidance very respectfully. The two are then taken to the room that Mizuhashi mentioned. There lies a woman with all her limbs amputated and her whole body bandaged with wires of machines going inside her body. He asks Maru to kill her with his powers. Kiruko asks why he isn't just pulling out the wires, only to find out that humans turn into man-eaters when a certain disease hits them. To restrain, the body part with the disease needs to be amputated. But the disease still keeps recurring and now Hashio has no margin left. If the machines are removed, she will become a monster. Maru checks and figures that he can kill her with his powers. The woman requests through her tabloid that she wants to see the sky one last time. The three of them carefully move her and the necessary machine toward the balcony in front of the room to have her last wish granted. Meanwhile, the Livium charged into the hospital, and the first person they kill is the guard who was working in the Order as their spy. Talk about rewarding loyalty. After having a moment to herself, Hashio signals to Maru and Uzami with a teary eye that she is ready. The moment is so heavy on the four of them that the noise and chaos around the building becomes silent as Maru dives into her body to end her life. After he is done, Uzami stands a little far, regretting letting her live like this since all this time. But Kiruko makes him read the last few messages on the tabloid that thank him for letting her die as a human and doing all this for her. Uzami catches up to everyone and tells them to leave as he needs to get done with the memorial first. Seeing everyone abandoned makes Maru feel guilty that it happened because he killed the man-eater. Uzami comes up to them, telling them everything in that building was made for her and he only helped a person once, resulting in more people coming in for help. He kept helping them because Hashio liked it when he made these prosthetics. The pathetic white shirts take over the building, ready to use the power and machinery to create their city to lead, unaware of one dormant man-eater left alive to have them pay for their sins in their future. While waiting for Uzami, Kiruko thinks about how she got to know her Robin, a doctor in Azaki, had indeed been in this hospital and left out of nowhere. With the excuse of events, she waits for Uzami, but Maru knows she just wants her information. What they both don't know is that Dr. Uzami feels like he doesn't have any aim in life left until they hear a gunshot. They both rush to the rooftop only to find him having committed suicide. While Kiruko is busy in her dilemma, Maru seems to have started cursing himself as he brings death to whoever he nears. Kiruko has to tell him he is saving people by killing man-eaters. Vimahime has a dream about being in a dark, scary cave alone until someone appears behind her, bringing light in the area and removing all her fears. The next day, these weird dreams seem to become the reason for her happy mood. Asura asked Kona to imagine deep within his soul what the bird with wings would look like. Kona closes his eyes and witnesses a sword of light. This is suddenly followed by Mikaki getting a deep cut on her leg. Lucky for her, Asura treats it right away. At night, Asura had woken up Kona to tell her she found her purpose and disappeared after a goodbye. Kona rushes to look for her and jumps across the height trying to catch up to her while she flies to hang herself to the ceiling. Asura saves him from falling and ends her life. After losing his first and only friend, Kona seemed lonely, so others decided to try being friends with him. This was initiated by Tokyo, essentially leading them to develop an interest in each other later. In the present, Kona peacefully watches Tokyo sleep until an electronic chiming alarms him, signaling that whoever killed Asura is coming for Tokyo. While some foreigners visit the nursery, Dr. Aoshima shows them around, amidst which she witnesses something odd about Tokyo. Kiruko and Maru found the same button in Uzami's hand as the logo on the Kuru beam, making Kiruko suggest that following this symbol might help Maru reach where he wants. They decide to travel to Uzami's hometown, the only problem being the lack of knowledge of where he potentially lived. Their dilemma is short-lived as an earthquake diverts their thoughts. The falling of a building makes Kiruko drag Maru there so they can get into the rooms and collect any valuables they find. It is stealing, but let's just call it a means of survival for Kiruko's sake. However, the building collapses in a way that leaves only a cave-like way to crawl in and wait till any movement causes the rest of the rubble to collapse on them. Maru sticks his head inside the hole to see for any path, only to have another face appear right in front of his face from the dark. It looks like a head floating as if it's a ghost, but that is an illusion due to the darkness of the cave. It seems to be another lurker like them, but what's more concerning is that a guy with the appearance of a goon was acting like they were bandits. The offense makes them shout at the man. Dr. Aoshima calls Tokyo to check up on her and tells her to take care and not do any strenuous activities. Mimahime stares at the ceiling when Shiro walks up to her. Mimahime mentions something floating around the ceiling, but Shiro thinks she is talking about dust or light and leaves. It turns out Mimahime can see the shadow of Asura where she hung herself. Tokyo is taken in isolation out of nowhere without any explanation. Kiruko asks the guy about the two pictures or the logo. Juchai suddenly parks his car a little too high on the footpath and then starts taking money from them to reveal stories listed on his board, because he narrates the stories mentioned to be able to memorize the stuff people ask him for. Weird logic, but the desperation makes them agree. The first paid story is about the cause of the man-eaters. Three possibilities are the asteroid, some man-eaters coming from space, and the giant terrorist attack. The space theory mentions the sight of a weird bird in the sky that is almost like a human body with wings. The next story of the walled town involved the school of Kaminaka. His story made it to be a world of women where men were slaves, only needed for breeding. A pair of girls wanted him, resulting in the birth of a boy. Since boys were kept as slaves, the four of them ran away, but the women were caught and hung while he ran. When he says he doesn't know if the kid is alive, Kiruko stops all this. His twisted stories make Kiruko tell him to go before she hits him. Maru shows confusion only for her to reveal that he did all that to distract them from the sign on the building, which is why he purposely parked the van so near the wall. The old building of Takahara Academy with the same symbol. Cunning of her to notice, but it would have saved time to do it earlier. Even though the building is abandoned, Kiruko manages to find a sheet describing the academy and listing some of their contacts. Kiruko thinks following this lead might be fruitful for Maru's aim. The staff meeting at the academy is turned upside down when Kaminaka declares that Tokyo is pregnant. It is concerning for them as they never taught this concept and the distinction between male and female to the students, putting the Takahara Academy at stake. Kiruko and Maru are currently sitting in a quiet, familiar car while they grunt over the route, distance, and everything else about the journey. Familiar because the driver is none other than Juchai. He had approached them back telling them the walled city story was authentic and he was waiting to be capable enough to go look for his son again. Now, even though the two don't trust his honesty, they show willingness for the sake of the poor kid. It's more of a thing between Kiruko and Juchai while Maru enjoys his free car ride. At night, Kiruko wakes up from her deep slumber with a jolt upon realizing she let her guard down. She sighs in relief that her gun and its batter are still with her. Juchai wakes up feeling her stare and innocently asks if she trusts him now that he didn't do anything wrong. An embarrassed Kiruko just turns her face away. Reaching the destination, he asks them to not stand out too much, and before showing them the route, he touches and moves around Kiruko's chest. She seems dumbfounded at his random frankness, while Maru hits him for touching the chest of someone else's woman. Now, this earns him a smack on the head. After all three of them have been violated in a loop, Juchai mentions a big chest can be a problem for some women here, and so can a boy. Kiruko zips her hoodie while Juchai fixes a wig on Maru's head, turning him into a pretty girl. Kiruko asks Juchai who is prettier, clearly showing the presence of a girl in this so-called I'm a boy inside person. As the two walk towards the academy, Juchai sits on the route having traumatic flashbacks of his past. The academy building is abandoned, and upon wandering inside, They can see that the people left out of nowhere with none of their belongings along. Kiruko finds the left-behind journal weird as it ends on a random day when suddenly, the room starts turning cold. The two cuties seem to be worrying about each other rather than themselves but cannot manage to control themselves. Just before losing their body to freeze, Maru senses the man-eater above them and signals for Kiruko to shoot there. This manages to save them. Knowing the man-eater escaped, they start running but can feel out following them. Kiruko suddenly turns around and walks in the direction of the man-eater with her mouth full of water. The minute the cold is near to touching her, she blows the water out, giving her time to pass through the already frozen area and shoot the man-eater. Even though she outsmarts it, only half of its body is busted, making the rest run away. Juchai is distraught upon discovering no living being was found there. Some men approach the three and recognize Juchai as Boar 11, his name in the slavery. He recognizes his former mates, Boars 6 and 9, and is overjoyed upon knowing his kid, Jugo, is alive. The men were taking care of him at night when the man-eater attacked the place. It gave them time to escape while the ones asleep died. After an emotional reunion and a soothing day, Kiruko and Maru get ready for a nap, while Juchai seems troubled about something. During the night, the place starts turning ice cold spontaneously, alerting everyone to move out. Juchai passed out, but he was brought outside by one of the people of the house. Kiruko takes Jugo and runs as far from the house as possible, but the cold seems to amplify further. Maru catches up and grabs the baby out of her reach, pushing him a little far on the ground as he senses the Haruko inside Jugo. After a while, the ice breaks and Jugo wakes up crying, relaxing the two at things being normal. Tokyo is unaware of her pregnancy, thinking something inside her body needs to be removed as she sends emotional texts to Kona about missing him. Juchai gives Kiruko his car as a gift, which she accepts since he has a car with his friends and he doesn't intend on traveling anymore. They bid a dramatic farewell in Japanese and English to the men before driving off. Driving off only on tire rotation though. The car breaks down even before the engine can warm up properly, leaving the two embarrassed as everyone watches. New 5th graders enter Takahara Academy. Jugo plays with blocks but a little blood splattered on his face. Juchai also has blood on himself as he stares at the dead body of Boar 9. When Juchai was escaping back then, there was one person who ratted them out right away rather than letting him be free with his family. Juchai does not consider it a crime that he wanted to be free and avenge the throat that ratted him out, making him lose his women and some quality years with his child. Juchai takes Jugo and his mate's car and leaves. The 5th graders mess around with the seniors and the girls even become fans of Kona's drawings, making Mimahime remember and worry about Tokyo. Meanwhile, Tokyo is painfully in the process that she doesn't even know is giving birth to a child. Kiruko wakes up and comes out only to find out Kiroko 9 written on her car. It turns out one Japanese syllable can turn Maru into 9. She corrects the word Kurukamaru and adds Juchai's name on it too, but now Juchai's name resembles the number 11 from afar. Kaminaka's testing on the children is going certainly well, but Dr. Sawatari's mention of the children falling ill and there being no cause and cure discovered yet makes the sick old woman decide to wager on Tokyo's child for the experimentations. She thinks the children of 2 children rather than Mina would produce their required results. She pressures Sawatari to do as she says to break the shackles of human mortality and create the heavens. Dr. Sawatari expresses the concern that for a brain transplant, the container must be at least 13 years old. This strikes a nerve for Kaminaka as she starts screaming about whether he thinks she will not live that long. She might not have if she didn't stop screaming in a few seconds. After taking her meds, she shares the plan of taking over Aoshima's body till Tokyo's child turns 13. It seems like the world slips away from underneath his feet for a second as he now realizes she made Aoshima assistant director for this reason only. He is well aware that Aoshima knows nothing about this, but Kaminaka doesn't seem to care much. Kiruko and Maru reside in an abandoned home, eat, and get ready for sleep, but Maru slept during the day due to his motion sickness and is wide awake now. He looks outside the window and sees smoke at a far distance. He wakes Kiruko up. She doesn't believe him at first, but upon seeing it decides that they will go to that place on foot in the morning. The source of the smoke seems to be a factory with weird wires which a man walks around. The man, who is none other than Kiruko's Robin. Mimahime hears someone playing music and walks towards the source. It is Oma, the 5th grader with shades on. Mimahime asks why she isn't playing with other kids. Oma starts crying that she will just annoy them. Mimahime takes her handkerchief and removes Oma's shades to wipe her tears. Big mistake is the moment she looks into Oma's eyes. Her worst fear comes alive as she feels drills and injections and machinery cutting through her body till she faints. Mimahime wakes up in the hospital bed as if it was all a nightmare. She hears Kona on the bed beside her. Kona tells her he must have contracted Tokyo's pain in his body. After explaining the Oma incident, Mimahime shares she can sense and see things that others probably can't. She can see things that are to happen in the future, but she can never guarantee when and whether it is going to happen. While explaining so, she can feel blood pool around her feet and a man-eater walk towards her, showing visualization of her trauma. Nibelheim walks out and finds Oma crying and guilty. Nibelheim takes her glasses off again and this time uses the same approach of chanting go away that she does to her intuitions to get rid of the hallucinations. She succeeds in two things, overcoming a power and making a cute little girl happy. There seem to be some arrangements being made by asking the tech department to do as told and some arrangements being made by Sawatari and Aoshima. The next day, students are asked to gather in the pool area for some announcements. Before that, Tokyo visits everyone, informing them that she will be back soon. The robot announces a test in which everyone will be asked to follow the directions they think are the correct ones as to reach outside of the outside is their role as Haruko's. After the announcements, some students felt the term Haruko was like calling them by their real name which they had forgotten. At night, everyone is in their usual role when Mina powers down. Tokyo wakes up in her room and tries to find her uniform trousers when the announcement to appear for the test is run. Everyone outside claims they want to see the outside of the outside, so she agrees too. But the next moment she wakes up in her bed realizing it was a dream about the same day. Nibelheim, Shiro, Anzu, and Taka are having breakfast outside when the 5th graders come around pointing at the ceiling and calling something dangerous. The whole system is currently down in the academy with people trapped in all the secured rooms, no access is possible, and no reconnections occurring. Suddenly, the ceiling bursts on the 4 kids, making them realize there is some danger. Maru and Kiruko travel toward the direction of the smoke and start smelling food. They turn a corner to find a whole market lying in front of them. They try to buy food with real money but seems like this new civilization works on some chips that are issued if people register themselves as residents. The two of them travel to the Ministry of Reconstruction and get themselves registered through the whole process. In the end, Kiruko requests the person to check if he has seen the people in the pictures since they have everyone's facial identities. The people recognize Robin, making Kiruko overexcited as she bombards them with questions about how she can meet him since she is his family. The lady there calls Robin, referring to him as Chief, and books an appointment for her after 2 hours. Maru seems to be very silent about the scenario. Since they have time, they find a restroom for themselves. After entering, Maru mentions how she is behaving weirdly and talking to herself and tells her she can go and meet him alone while he waits. Kiruko promises him that she will be back to continue their journey. Kiruko runs towards the factory where Robin resides while chanting his name in her head. She finally gets a sight of him and screams his name, and to her luck, Robin matches the resemblance to her old self and recognizes her right away. All the kids rush towards the shelter. Nibelheim looks behind to see a hole in the wall. The 5th graders are sent off to people with Kona, after which he will go look for Tokyo while the rest 4 decide to see what lies behind the wall. Kamanaki's grace, power, and superiority vanish when the attacks make her realize her life is in danger. The old woman stands up from her wheelchair and starts running like an athlete. Now, that's what we call love for life. Dr. Sawatari wakes up and finds the 2 babies mixed. He believes he will simply test the DNA later and puts a circle beneath the foot of a random one for the moment. Well, it is just now being revealed that Tokyo had twins, and what a wild way to do so. Kiruko finally meets Robin and bombards him with questions, but Robin tells her to calm down as they both have a lot of questions for each other. Robin is amazed upon getting to know the fusion of Kiruko and Haruki. He mentions some Dr. Sakota which Kiruko asks about, but Robin doesn't know much. He left Asakusa to look for him and lost the orphanage too. Robin walks around with Kiruko explaining how he found this place with some research about genetically engineered plants, and with the help of others, they developed other stuff to build a town again. Robin then tells her he prepared a hot bath for her to freshen up and they can talk later. Kiruko takes a bath while being even more fascinated about Robin since he developed a whole city here, has all the necessities, and there is no awkwardness that she fears. On the other hand, poor Maru sits alone in a dark room looking at her gun, worrying if she will be fine without it. Kiruko turns a little too much blind eye towards the situation when Robin takes her clothes away and tells her to come to the room in her towel. Maru walks outside for food, the kids walk out of the wall, and Kiruko walks inside the room, all putting us in a dreadful situation of what will happen next. Robin pulls Kiruko with a sinister expression and handcuffs in his hand. The kids are bewildered upon seeing a fence outside the wall, ahead of which lies a forest. Nibelheim looks up at the sky and falls as if she didn't imagine the ceiling to be this high and huge. Robin seems to be a little too sinister as he tests who lies behind that body in the sickest way possible. He makes the mind of Haruki witness the body of his sister, Kiruko, being abused by Robin by making Kiruko look into the mirror. Taka assumes that this must be the test that mentioned outside of the outside, and probably going to the end of the forest would have them pass their test. Nibelheim suggests telling everyone this, but Taka mentions the ones reaching first getting better grades, so the 4 of them decide to look around first. During the walk, they feel the weather being hot, they witness insects and birds for the first time, and such terrain for the first time is well unlike their usual heaven. Nimahime wants to go back and look for Tokyo and invite her friends. Shiro follows her while Anzu and Taka walk ahead. Everyone just gets to know that Tokyo had twins, but they only plan to give one of the babies back to her. Sawatari nervously tells the baby with the mark will be going to Tokyo, but then panics and changes his decision. He is acting odd and panicky, but no one picks on to the fact that he mixed up the babies. Aoshima suggests it is the perfect time to launch the Noah project, which plans to protect the children. Maru spends his day doing useless stuff to keep himself busy, but when the third day falls, he decides to go look for Kiruko. He enters the boundaries of the factory when the guards stop them. Upon asking about Kiruko, the guards joke about all the noises they heard the whole day, igniting Maru's aggression. He starts walking inside and throws both of them into the river upon their resistance. He then walks inside and fights the two other guards confidently and defeats them easily, even though they have a stronger build. Kiruko is lying in a room when she gets a flashback of Hiriko sleeping. She realizes it wasn't her memory but Kiriko's, making her happy that she is alive somewhere inside this body. Her thoughts land on the look Robin gave her when he first saw her, making her wonder what it meant. She stops her head from thinking about him and cries while calling out for Maru to save him. Talk about a perfect summon. Here she calls his name and the door opens to reveal Maru standing there, traumatized at the sight. To Robin's misfortune, he walks in right away, getting caught by Maru. Maru slowly paces towards him while Robin panics and tries to run, but all in vain as he gets cornered by Maru. Robin tries to act cocky, but Maru's dead expressions remain unchanged as he slams Robin on the ground and starts punching him. Sawatari rescues Tokyo and reveals the baby to her, explaining the scenario. They plan on going to inform Kono, but an injured Kaminaka reaches there and asks for the baby. She then orders Mina to do so, but as she is cornered, Tokyo's powers kick in as her body starts turning into stone. Shiro and Nimahime cannot seem to reach the fence no matter how much they walk. Nimahime hears water running somewhere and they find it down a cliff. Nimahime stands in the weaker part of the ground that breaks. Shiro rushes to protect her, getting wounded while she only got some scratches. While washing away his wounds, he finally confesses his love for her. With teary eyes, Nimahime breaks her uniform button and gives it to him. Kiruko stops Maru from killing Robin, which frustrates him, but he complies. Later, she sits by the shore feeling empty, as if she doesn't even know who she is anymore. Seeing her pained, Kiruko expresses that he is straight, so if he had met Haruki, he'd just have been friends with him. While if he had met Kiriko, he might not have fallen for her. There is no doubt that he fell for the strong, caring, right decision maker Kiruko, who protects him and is always there for him. Later, Kiruko rips the photo with Robin apart and throws it into the river, while Maru swears to himself to kill Robin if he ever sees him again. The people entering the factory find it weird that it is empty, but freak out when they open a locked room and find one of the residents of the town being completely consumed by a man-eater. All of them rush out and lock the room before the man-eater can become completely active. Kiruko has gotten back to life nicely as she suggests the two of them continue their journey to find heaven, not to forget the oath that they will protect each other when in need. With this sweet note, Kiruko starts the drive, only for the car to shut them up. After the dramatic timing is over, the car finally decides to move the embarrassed folks to the next part of their journey to find heaven on earth. So everyone is probably wondering, and I must ask, does this mean Maru likes guys or girls? Because just saying, in my book he a little suspicious. But that concludes the recap. If I'm being honest right now, I hardly knew what was happening when I watched this anime. But if anyone would like to explain further details, please be my guest. Hope you enjoyed. Make sure you are subscribed, and I'm out.